Okay, imagine this. You sit down, you tell yourself you only have 20 minutes, you boot up a random indie game, and suddenly everything on screen is exploding. Enemies are chasing you like they personally hate you, and your brain is fully locked in survival mode. That is basically how Overkill Squad grabbed me. I was not expecting much. I pressed play, and 5 minutes later I was sweating like I owed the enemies money. This game is fast, loud, chaotic, and somehow still very controlled. And today I want to talk about why it surprised me more than I expected. Overkill Squad is an ultra-high-speed top-down shooter roguelike developed by Chillfox Games, an indie studio based in Turkey. The game is currently available on Steam and it clearly wears its inspirations on its sleeve. If Hotline Miami lives rent-free in your head, this game will absolutely poke that memory and then throw grenades at it. The core idea is very simple and very focused. Each run is built around intense 1-minute combat arenas where you pick a fighter, jump into action immediately, and try to survive waves of enemies while upgrading your firepower. There is no long setup, no walking around doing nothing, and no unnecessary downtime. You spawn, you move, you shoot, and everything wants you dead almost instantly. The roguelite structure means you die a lot, but every run teaches you something. You unlock relics, weapons get stronger, and you slowly learn how to read enemy behavior and level flow. What I really like is that the game does not pretend to be something it is not. It knows exactly what kind of experience it wants to deliver. Short, intense, and chaotic bursts of action that respect your time. Level pacing is handled surprisingly well. Around the second level, the difficulty ramps up, but it never feels unfair or strange. You feel the pressure increasing, but the game prepares you for it through better weapons, clearer feedback, and enemy patterns that you can actually learn. From a design perspective, this is a very smart way to increase challenge without frustrating players, especially in a genre where things can spiral out of control very quickly. Controls are extremely reactive, which is not optional in a twin-stick shooter like this. Movement feels tight, aiming is responsive, and there is no noticeable input delay. If you die, it almost always feels like your fault, not the game's fault, and that is a huge compliment. Visually, Overkill Squad uses a cartoony pixel art style. It is colorful, exaggerated, and intentionally a bit over the top. The game uses various assets that feel inspired by classic arcade shooters and chaotic action games. And while it is clearly a 2D game, the visual feedback makes everything feel punchy and alive. The UI is very simple, but that simplicity works in its favor. Nothing gets in the way of the action, and everything you need to know is communicated clearly. Sound design also does its job well. Weapons sound powerful, enemies feel threatening, and the audio supports the chaos instead of fighting against it. Nothing feels out of place, and the sound effects reinforce the sense of impact when things explode. Enemies fly across the screen, and blood and corpses scatter everywhere. The first thing that really stood out to me was how reactive the mechanics feel. I genuinely did not expect this level of responsiveness. Everything from movement to shooting feels immediate, and that responsiveness is what makes the chaos manageable instead of overwhelming. In games like this, even a small delay can ruin the experience, and Overkill Squad avoids that problem entirely. Enemy AI is another big highlight. Enemies are not just running straight at you like mindless targets. They actually try to hide, reposition, and follow you in ways that feel intentional. This increases moments where you think you are safe, only to realize an enemy flanked you or waited for the right moment to attack. That kind of behavior adds tension without needing artificial difficulty spikes. Weapon progression is extremely satisfying. As your weapons improve, you really feel the difference. Shots become stronger, feedback becomes louder and more explosive, and enemies react in more dramatic ways. From a design standpoint, this is where the developers' focus on feedback really shines. Screen shake, blood splatter, corpses flying across the arena, all of that contributes to the feeling that your power is growing. It is raw, chaotic, and very fun. There is also a small but very smart quality of life feature that I love. An arrow points you toward enemies, which sounds simple, but in a chaotic bullet hell environment, this helps maintain flow and prevents confusion. You always know where the danger is coming from, and that allows you to make quick decisions instead of spinning in circles. Progression between levels feels meaningful. You genuinely improve both in terms of character power and personal skill. The game teaches you how to play it better without holding your hand. From a developer perspective, this is a great example of player learning through systems instead of tutorials. Overall, the game embraces chaos, but it is controlled chaos. If you enjoy blowing things up, fast reactions, and games that keep your adrenaline high, Overkill Squad absolutely delivers. While the core experience is strong, there are definitely areas where the game could grow. Multiplayer immediately comes to mind. Adding a multiplayer mode could be a massive bet, but also a very interesting one. Chaotic twin-stick shooters often become even more fun with friends, and cooperative or competitive mode could increase replayability and keep players engaged for longer periods. Of course, multiplayer is a huge technical challenge, especially for small indie teams, so this is more of a wish than a demand. None of these are deal breakers. The game is already polished and fun, but these additions could elevate it from a great indie shooter to something even more memorable. One of the most interesting parts of Overkill Squad is the mindset behind its development. Chillfox Games clearly approached this project with a strong philosophy. The developer has openly talked about valuing players' time. Many indie games are priced around a similar range, but price is not always the real barrier. Time is. Players hesitate because they are not sure if a game is worth the time investment. Overkill Squad was designed to respect that. You can jump in, play for 20 minutes, get a full rush of action, and walk away feeling satisfied. That design goal explains many of the game's decisions, from short intense arenas to immediate feedback and fast progression. The developer focused heavily on feedback systems. Every weapon has different properties like bullet speed, force, and damage, and those values influence visual and physical reactions such as screen shake, blood splatter, and enemy bodies flying away. This is not just visual flair, it reinforces player actions and makes combat feel rewarding. Difficulty balancing was also an interesting journey. The developer mentioned that the difficulty was reduced 4 times during development. Early demo versions were apparently brutal, with players dying in under 5 seconds. What felt manageable to the developer was clearly not balanced for a broader audience. This is a very common issue in game development, especially for solo developers who become extremely skilled at their own game. From a technical standpoint, Overkill Squad was built using the Unity engine. Most of the game was developed solo. An artist was hired for the Steam art, and a small number of decorative assets were created by another pixel artist. But the majority of the game, including systems, logic, and design, was handled by the developer. Interestingly, the developer mentioned struggling more with art than with code. Coding came naturally, but art was a challenge, especially since this was their first serious experience with it. Key technical challenges included movement logic, blood and corpse splatter systems, and enemy AI, all of which ended up being some of the strongest parts of the game. The developer also prefers building systems themselves instead of relying heavily on third-party tools, mentioning that external tools often introduce bugs that take longer to fix than writing custom solutions from scratch. Overkill Squad is good for players who want fast, intense action without committing hours of their day. It is perfect for short play sessions that still feel meaningful. If you enjoy chaotic shooters, responsive controls, and games that respect your time, This one is absolutely worth checking out. It is also a great example for beginner indie developers who want to study strong feedback systems, tight controls, and focused design. Let me know what you think about this game in the comments. And if you have played it, I would love to hear your experience. Thanks for watching.